All right. Yeah, we're a little behind because Facebook was a little behind. They didn't want to connect with us because we were just too awesome to have on at noon. They had to delay it a little bit. So
we exploded Facebook.
Yeah,
Our awesomeness exploded Facebook.
It's like we're not ready for that today yet. Give us an extra 10 minutes. Facebook had to finish its coffee, right?
I still do too, surprisingly.
All right, so we are live on Facebook now, yay. So this is Catherine Hughes. She is an author like a million times over. She is the Caffeinated Advocate, and she's a speaker, a blogger. I'm probably going to leave some things off, but Catherine is putting out her newest book, which is her first solo book, correct?
Yes, that is my first solo.
Yes, Imprisoned No More. So I'm going to turn it over to Catherine to talk a little bit about who she is. First of all, introduce yourself. Tell us about you. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me, Cori. So again, I'm Catherine Hughes. I live in a very small town in southwestern Pennsylvania called White Oak. It is the most boring town in Pennsylvania, allegedly, but I would like to think I am not boring. At home, I have my son with autism, who truly inspires everything I do. He is 22 years old. We have my mom. We have 6 cats and 1 dog, so we're a huge rescue family. Wow. I have worked for over 17 years in the field of behavioral health, again, all inspired by my son. I am not a social worker or a psychology major by trade. Honestly, I wanted to be a journalism major in college, but I kind of got sidetracked because I gave birth to Christian. So writing has always been a passion of mine. My parents were both English professors. So I've always had that writing bug. And, throughout my career in behavioral health, I've always had, a little bit of dabbling in writing here and there with my trainings and, writing speeches and presenting and being a part of newsletters. So I've always had a little bit of writing throughout my career, but it was really last year that I embraced everything and I started with the collaborations, and I had been working on my book for, to be honest, Cori, almost 20 years. And, there's a few reasons for that. I started blogging actually 2 years ago, but I was just doing, a little bit here and there, wasn't really consistent. But I knew that someday I always wanted to be a published author. That's honestly been a dream of mine since I was a child. And with my solo book, because there's, so much trauma that goes along with my son's diagnosis and how we got there, it took me forever to put it out there. So even though I had shared some things in collaborations and some chapters, putting together my book, it was like birthing a baby, right? Yeah. It's truly like giving birth. Mm-hmm. And, I kept working on it. And then a good friend of mine who I work with on other collaborations said, Kathy, you've got to push it out there. You have to get it done. We were talking right before we went live about the joke of being on mute. Well, I was keeping my story on mute. Yeah. And I just, I couldn't quite get it all out because I had to relive some of those experiences. And then I wasn't sure, do I really want to put all of that out there, right? And I think you see that with a lot of the writers that you support, is people, want to be an author, they want to share their story, but then sometimes we hold back because, we're afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of what are people going to think? Yeah. What is their opinion? What are they going to think of me? What are they going to think of my family? Mm-hmm. Are they even going to like what I'm writing? Are they going to think I'm a terrible writer? All of those things swim in your head. Mm-hmm. But when we hold back on our stories, we're holding back from helping other people. And me being, I'm a walking, talking, breathing empath. That's just who I am as a person. And I love giving and I love supporting people, especially families in the autism community, given, I'm an autism mom myself. Mm-hmm. I couldn't hold on to it any longer. So finally, as of August 23rd, which was my birthday, consider it a birthday present to myself, I finally launched Imprisoned No More. And gosh, Cori, I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I put it out there. And the feedback I'm getting already, oh my gosh, it had to be put out there. And I'm just so glad I did.
Yes. And congratulations on finally getting it out there. That's so awesome.
Thank you.
So I know I've been seeing all of your posts on Facebook about, all these people who are getting copies and you're sending out all this stuff. So the larger impact of this, it's beyond just, oh, I know a few people, or, oh, my family wanted to support me. I mean, you're probably reaching people all over the world who you're sending books to and all of that stuff. So what was it like transitioning into this place where you're like, okay, I'm finally an author in my own right? I mean, you've participated in collaborations, as you said.
Mhm.
What was that feeling like for you?
It was a combination between, this release, but it also was pushing me forward to do even more. So I know the name of this group is Write That Book and Build Your Business. Well, I have never thought of myself, when I hear the terms, mompreneur, boss babe, business owner, I never thought of myself as that, because during the day, you can see I'm actually at work right now at Achieving True Self. I work for an amazing ABA provider supporting families. And this is my, not just my full-time role, kind of my over full-time role, because I love what I do. I love my team. But as far as everything I was doing on the side, I thought of it as just, oh, I'm putting out a couple of books and I'm going to put out my story, but I'm not a business owner. But putting out my book pushed me to forming an LLC for the Caffeinated Advocate and going beyond the blog, because so many people are reaching out to me, not just about how do I share my own story, but do you offer any coaching? What other supports can you give me? So it propelled me very quickly to jump into a world that, I didn't think I was part of that. I didn't think I was, made for that.
Yeah.
But it pushed me so rapidly into another world that I wasn't quite expecting, but it's very rewarding. And you're right. The more people you reach, they reach out to people, they're sharing, whether it's their social media, they're calling somebody. And yes, I've had contacts from all over the world asking about, how do I get an autographed copy of your book? Or where can I find it? Or can I only get it on Amazon? And all of these questions. I mean, from India, from Canada, from Nigeria, from Zambia, it's mind blowing, but it's so rewarding because my story is helping people.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it takes that, like, actually getting your story out there to realize all these people actually were paying attention. They were waiting. They were waiting on me. They were waiting on my story so they could see what their journey should look like too. So I am very glad that you were able to reach so many people. And I wanted to mention too, you talked about, like, I think you said you just became an LLC with Caffeinated Advocate.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize, like, when you write a book, like, you have a business.
Absolutely.
As a business owner now, because the book is a business, or it's part of the business. So I'm glad that you did mention that, because when you are working on your book, it's something that you have to think about ahead of time.
Right.
Because now you're in the place where you're like, oh, I've got this book and I can move forward with coaching. I can move forward with speaking. I can move forward with all these different options. So it's good to think about that stuff at the beginning too.
Right. Absolutely. And when you have a book, like you just said, the speaking, the training opportunities, people come flocking to you. And, a lot of times my speaking and training has been a part of my work at Achieving True Self and, in the field, but it's also kind of blending, because sometimes I'm approached as Kathy, the Caffeinated Advocate, and sometimes I'm approached as Kathy, the director at Achieving True Self. And the book is supporting families within our own organization. Our CEO bought, a couple hundred copies of the book, and we're giving them to families, to inspire hope with them. So it's also a support to this business as well. So it's kind of like fitting that dual role from the business perspective, as it's helping me on my own and propelling forward, but also it's supporting the families here. And then it's also a marketing tool for us as well. So my work all kind of blends together.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so cool that you're explaining, this book is so flexible in how we're using it. So I love that. I was thinking about the fact that you weren't really like a new author with this, because you had been doing collaborations. In fact, Mei-Ling Chan, who just released her book. She just released her book, which was a collaboration between, I think 14 different people. And you were in that one too.
2 in August. That was crazy, Cori. Crazy.
Let's just launch like 500 books at once. Let's just do that.
I have all the time in the world.
Yeah. So because you've been telling this story and you've been talking about it, how many collaborations have you worked on?
So right now I'm editing my 10th.
Okay.
And there are 2 more that will be released by the end of the year. I'm still working on some of the editing for that. And then I have 2 small chapters in those as well.
Uh-huh.
And then early next year, I plan to release my father's poetry. So I talk about in my book, one of the main reasons I was determined to become a published author, and I said I'd do it before 45, and I did it, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I made a promise to my dad on his deathbed, and it was 2 things. Number 1, I would publish In Prison No More and tell the story of Christian's diagnosis and give people hope and inspiration. Mm-hmm. The second part of that was I wanted to publish his poetry. He has decades and decades worth of poetry and even some drawings because he loved art. And I promised him that, you know, if we didn't do it while he was still here, and he's been gone for 11 years now, I said I would find a way to get his words onto paper for the world to see. So that's the second half of my promise to him, and I'll be putting that out in January of 2021. So by that point, that should be number 13, which is our friend Shelly's favorite number. I keep teasing her about that. I said, Shelly, I'm catching up. I'm catching up.
Okay. I remember seeing that because I was thinking, is it 13 or am I just Shelly? Am I getting Shelly vibes?
Right. Yeah. I'm absorbing the Shelly vibes, and I said I can get through these next few because then I'm going to get to 13, and that's for Dad, and that's her favorite number, so that's going to motivate me.
There you go. Yeah, and that is such a beautiful mission. I love that you're doing that. But I wanted to talk about the fact that you have done all these collaborations. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that kind of helped you? That was kind of a motivator. Or did it feel like, okay, I'm going to do this and then we're just going to pause and wait? Like, how did you handle that?
To be honest, I feel like being a part of the collaborations kind of prepped me for where I am today. So for anyone who's starting out, who's nervous about putting their own book together, I would suggest, you know, slowly working on your own, but being a part of a collaboration kind of gets your feet wet, if you will. And that's kind of how it worked for me. So being a part of something and seeing what it's like to, you know, put together a book and the manuscript and the publishing and the launch and all of those things, I feel like it prepared me for In Prison No More and, you know, kind of gave me some practice. It also gives you an audience too, as you're starting to build that readership. So for me, I think it was a huge bonus being a part of the collaborations, and it wasn't, you know, nerve-wracking at all. To me, it was more exciting. And I feel like with each one, I learned a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I always wonder about the piece where you're getting exposure to others' platforms.
Yes.
So you felt like that was really important to you?
Absolutely. And I've also connected to so many people throughout these collaborations because some of them, you know, are related to autism, but others are related to behavioral health. One of them is on caregiving. A lot of things that, you know, my niche seems to be just the personal experience. So with my family, I have experience as a single parent, a caregiver, you know, the autism piece, behavioral health, trauma, you know, all of those things. Since I have that experience, I'm able to share, and then I find more and more people I connect to. And then, you know, they're looking for me for support, but also some of them are coming to me for services through ATS. So again, you know, it all, you know, kind of blends in the, you know, one big ball, if you will, but it all relates.
Cool. Okay. So you had said that you've been working on your book for like 20 years.
Yeah, I did.
Where did you get started? How did you get started, and why? Why did you want to start with this?
So I started way back, and this was when I first started my career in behavioral health and supporting families. Mm-hmm. As I started to speak out about our story in trainings and supervisions with our staff, I would hear, you need to write a book. Some of them would even say, this is a Lifetime TV movie. And, you know, once you read my book, you know, you will understand exactly what people mean by that. Mm-hmm. And at first I was a little bit nervous, but, you know, having that writing bug in me, I knew, you know, I could do this. But then as soon as I'd start and, you know, I'd put out the first chapter, second chapter, and was kind of reliving that, I would always stop because it was so hard mm-hmm. to push myself past that point. And I would find myself at the computer at night, you know, typing, crying my way through it, hysterical, and then like I'm shutting it and I'm walking away because it was just too much for me. Mm-hmm. So it truly was years of trying to just push that out and get it out of my head and recognize that, you know, it's okay. Mm-hmm. And it's also going to help people. So I needed to get past that. So it was not only, you know, the pushing through to put it out there, but also the healing process.
Yeah.
So it was very cathartic writing for me and, putting it all together. I also struggled for years with the purpose and the length. I say this a lot in my videos about In Prison No More. I wasn't sure how long it needed to be. I got hung up on what's my word count and how many chapters should I have? And, does this have to be, I say in the book, a Christory for my son, Christian, a Christory. Do I have to write the entire experience?
Mm-hmm.
And, as I started to put it together, I realized it doesn't have to be a diary of the last 20 years. I don't remember everything, for one. And number two, is that what my readers need? And then I started to think about my audience. So my audience for this book, even though I think it's something that a lot of people would find inspiration from, it's mainly for those parents and caregivers that are new to the diagnosis, or, maybe educators, paras, therapists that are, trying to learn more about autism and a family's experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought about what do they need and how long does it need to be? How much time do they have to devote to reading the book? So then I thought, well, maybe it should be shorter, but packed with, here's our story, here's how we got there. Mm-hmm. But then what can I give back? So our readers want to gain something and a takeaway, right? So I thought about putting in a piece about self-care and that grief cycle and what parents and caregivers go through once they get to that point of diagnosis and once they get to the point of, accruing services. Mm-hmm. So I talk about that. And then I talk a little bit about where we are today. And that together, it all came together as one. And what I'm hearing from everyone who reads the book is this is exactly what we needed. So for me, it's a relief knowing that even though, yes, it was almost 20 years to pull it together, it did come together. This is what people are saying they need, and that feels really good.
I love that. And I know so many people want to share their stories, and I always push them like, share your story, but you want to give a little bit more. It's more than a memoir. It's something that's going to help people. Yes. What is the big takeaway? What is it you can add to the story that gets them to go, oh, okay, I can do this too.
Yes.
I love that you're doing that.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I did want, oh gosh, we've got all kinds of people on all of a sudden. Shelly's on, Maureen and Sarah. Hello, ladies.
Shelly, is your nose itching? Because we were totally talking about you.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, so, oh crap, what was the thing I was going to say? So we talked about the healing piece and all of that. Mm-hmm. When you were talking about it being very cathartic, that's what I wanted to get into. Mm-hmm. I do get a lot of people who say, I want to share my story. I don't feel ready. And I talk to them about that. Like you have to actually be past that point. You have to have healed that story before you can share it, because you will feel overwhelmed. You'll feel overexposed. You'll feel scared. You'll feel crappy. You will still be healing it and you won't be ready. So are there, other than writing, was there anything that you had to do personally to actually come full circle and say, I'm good, now I'm ready to let other people know?
Yeah. And I feel like it's a few things. Support for myself. And like you said, it's healing on your own. So to be quite honest, I was in therapy for years through, my own struggles with mental health. I'm also recovered from an eating disorder. And, that all goes back to, blame, shame, guilt. And it wasn't for just me, but it was also for, blaming myself for being, a terrible caregiver. Is Christian's autism my fault? Is what happened to my family my fault? Am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? So all of that plays into not only, my work, but my writing. Is it going to be good enough? Going back to, is that worthy? Is my story worthy? So I needed to not only heal myself and get to a point where I felt like I was recovered and good enough and truly loved myself. And I write about that in the book as well. Loving you. Can you be that person who looks in the mirror and says, I love you? And until you're healed and at peace with yourself, it is kind of hard to share your story and heal other people because you're not ready yet.
Right.
So that was definitely part of it. And another piece that's so important that, you give to the community is the coaching, having someone to give you that accountability and to push you through the story and to tell you, you can do this. Your story is worthy and you've got this. You can do it just right. Just right. The rest will come. And if you say you're not a writer, don't stop doing that. Stop saying you're not a writer. Stop obsessing over your word count. Stop obsessing over the outlines. Just write. That's what editors are for. That's what coaches are for. I feel like everyone can be a writer because everybody has a story, no matter how you communicate. So thinking about like my kiddos we serve that, you know, are using a device or using pictures, they're still telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has one, but
Yeah.
everyone needs support on their journey. And that's, you know, part of our ATS mission is we say everyone needs help sometimes. Everyone needs support on that journey. Mm-hmm. So I feel like having those people, you know, whether it's your tribe, if you will, or whether it's a therapist or a coach, you know, especially if your story is super traumatic, I feel like you need that person to kind of guide you along and say, it's okay. Come on. It's okay. You can do this.
Yeah.
Because we all have those moments where we feel like we just can't do it.
Yeah. I do see a lot of people with basically everything you just talked about. So I'm actually going to record that clip and just play it at people. You're worthy. Yes, you're a writer. If you can write, then yes, you are a writer.
Yeah,
go
you're
ahead.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that perfectionist piece, that stops so many people because we feel like, you know, okay, I have to write exactly the right thing. And then you get caught up in the words and then you're not doing anything and you're stuck in this cycle where you're going, okay, I want to write, but I can't write. I want to write, but I can't write. And you just go around and around, and you're showing us you move through this and you come through it. And even if it takes a long time, get it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. It can be done. I truly believe that anyone who truly wants to share a story is absolutely capable of doing it.
Awesome. So in your experience with writing, with sharing your story, is there any piece of wisdom that you want to share aside from everybody's a writer and everybody can do this?
It's that belief in yourself and loving yourself, recognizing that you're worthy of self-care so you can be at your best. So whether you're sharing your story, whether you're trying to care for others, whatever you're trying to do, if you put yourself first, you'll be able to give. We all say you can't pour from an empty cup, and that's absolutely true. And I'm still guilty of that sometimes, no question. Yeah. But, you know, whatever it is we're trying to give to this world, we have to be full. You know, we have to be whole. We have to be healed. So for anyone watching, that's, you know, my number one takeaway for you is please be good to yourselves. Give yourselves grace, especially now in 2020. We're all going through hell in some sort of way, whether it's we're struggling with school or, you know, trying 5 different computers to get your kid on online schooling, or, you know, you're trying to telework while, you know, dinner may be boiling over in the kitchen and kids working on homework. We're all going through some really strange things right now. But give yourself that break, believe in yourself, and whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, you absolutely can do it.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. So tell everybody where they can find your book.
Sure. So it can be found on Amazon. If you go to, there's a bit.ly link. It's just bit.ly/imprison no more. And you can link to the book. It's available on, yeah, we'll drop that in the comments too. It's available on Amazon on Kindle and paperback. I'm also taking private orders for those who want an autographed copy. So I can drop an order link too in the comments. Okay. For anyone that's interested in that. I'll also drop the link to my page, The Caffeinated Advocate. All of my social media links are on there. I am on pretty much every social media channel, so I will drop that as well. And I can also be found, of course, through Achieving True Self. I can drop that link for anyone, you know, who happens to be watching who's in need of support for their child. I would be happy to share that just in case. You never know who has a need, so I will drop that as well. And please contact me if there's anything I can do for you. You know, whatever support you need. What I like to say as the Caffeinated Advocate is, what do you need from me? So you tell me what you need, and if I don't have it, I'll find it for you. Awesome.
Awesome. I love that. So thank you so much for being here and talking to us today. And if you're watching the replay or if you're on now, you have questions for us, put them in the comments. We'll both be watching and we will answer any questions you have about writing, about Imprison No More, about anything we talked about today. So again, thank you. Thanks to everybody who joined us, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Cori. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And we're off.
I think we're off.
We're off.